Hello, everyone. It's Martha Novak. This is a show called Real Talk with Martha Novak. I can already tell I'm going to have a great deal of trouble with my kitties because I have been going very fast. I just threw my dog out to go with my husband on a walk, hopefully. And we'll see if we have interference from animals. But you know what? I love them, and I wouldn't have it any other way, I suppose. Guys, this is a talk where we talk. This is a show where we talk about real things. And one of the real things today that we're going to talk about is self-sabotage. You know, it's very important to me to give you something that you can use each week and that make your lives better, that certainly make you think about what you're doing, because consciousness is a very deliberate and conscious state of being. Many of these things that we do self-sabotage, we don't even realize we're doing, okay? And I want to tell you something very nice. I taught a class yesterday of my advanced students, and we touched on self-sabotage, and I had them do an exercise where they listed all the ways they could self-sabotage and have or will or do, and what they're observing in their clients and that kind of thing. And it was quite fascinating. Because it is an extensive list. It's almost insurmountable how many things we do. So we will not be listing all of them here. But I will say to you that you're going to need a pencil and paper, or a pen and paper, or a computer in front of you today, one or the other. Because as we talk about this, I thought I'd read you some of their lists. It didn't occur to me when I asked for these lists yesterday. I did a big healing on them yesterday, and so I wanted the lists. But as it occurred to me this morning, I was thinking, wow, you know, they've got this done for you in a way. So I'd like to talk to you about that and what they came up with. You're doing it in your own unique way. But because there are not too many unique things in the ego child's mind, we're pretty much the same there. The manipulations are pretty much the same. It's going to be real interesting for us to read these things to you because I think you'll find some similarities. We'll start with the general, and then we're going to go down to those picky points. You're going to want the pen and paper for the picky points. Because if I say something that you're doing, the first step to healing all this, and we are going to talk about how to heal it, is realization that you're doing it. Okay? It's really important that you own that I am doing this, and I want to see what I'm doing very clearly. See what you're doing out there, and stop it in the moment. That's how to change momentum from the ego child's mind, which is, by the way, perpetuating the self-sabotage, and the higher self mind. We're going to talk about why you're doing this, which, of course, if we can get to the root cause, even a general root cause, it's going to help you relieve some of this. And that's our intention, of course. Let's do a prayer, get us all on the same page. See all of my friends already popping in. Hello, Denise. Oh, darling. Blessings to you, too. How sweet. I appreciate it a lot. Okay, here we go, guys. Dear God, thank you so much for the blessings that we are about to receive. Open us to your voice through the dialogue today as we open to the truth that lies in your enlightenment. This is the truth for us personally, dear God, and we open to it. We say we will not confuse ourselves in these 90 minutes. We are going to try to be very open and understand what we're doing, even if it challenges us to change. But it's change for the better. It's change in you. It's change to get our goals. It's change to be who we are as our potential in the energy of you. We thank you so much, dear God. We say now something that's usually pretty uncomfortable, which is we know nothing. For it is the you through us and through all things that know it all It's not our ego child's mind that's trying to control everything, that has the larger picture and all the information and the ability to help change us. It is the highest self, and we open ourselves now to that mind and say thank you for this great system and how it all works. We so appreciate it. And now we say that we know nothing and that it's perfectly all right. And we're listening to you. And so it is. Amen. Guys, thank you so much for listening in. Oh, you sweet dear people. I'm so glad you're here. All right. So the first thing, again, my class went nuts, and I'm going to say that. I'll save that more to the end because they've got some incredible things that are so much deeper than any of the articles that are written. But I want you to understand what you're going to be hearing, right? And how you can claim it and what to do with it once you claim it. So that's why I'm not starting there. Let's start with some of the articles I found on this. There's one I liked by Helen Hendrickson. She's a psychologist at Boston University Center for Anxiety and Related Disorders. Speaking of anxiety, you keep in mind that where I'm coming from is anxiety is usually related to you not living your potential in essence. In other words, if you are dedicated to this and you do want to get there and you do want to open in deeper levels of consciousness and everything, any decision you make that is not in keeping with that is going to give you anxiety. Not only that, but when you try to change these really entrenched patterns that are in the ego child's mind. See, the ego child's mind formed these things to keep you safe, to keep you alive, to make sense of your world. It doesn't care whether you're happy. It just wants you alive, you see. We are the ones that at a certain point in our process of living, we go, I'm not happy, and let's look at this. Let's see what's going on here. So then we must challenge some of this structure that the ego child's mind has created. Challenging that structure when it has told you all your life that that's the thing that makes you safe, these limitations, this way of thinking that is small and limited, keeps you safe. And then here I come and say, what you want is outside that box. Don't you think you're going to be experiencing anxiety then? Of course you are. So you experience anxiety not living your potential, and you experience anxiety in the first stages of trying to live your potential because it's change, okay? And the ego child's mind perceives change as something terrible. Something's going to happen to you. I say, change is the movement of God. Change is good, all right? So what do you do with that? What we call a cognitive distortion, where you want it but you're afraid. You want it but you're afraid. You got two different things going on in the emotional body, okay? A lot of times, because we're always trying to resolve that cognitive distortion, we'll go back to the familiar. You're going to hear me talk about this in a little more detail, right? And so we go back and we try to build the structure again. All right. But the other side of this is for you to say, no, I'm not going to go back to the past. I'm not going to do what I've always done. I'm going to see what I'm doing, and I'm going to change it in this present moment. And I'm going to deal with the anxiety there because this is good for me. This is where I want my body to go. If you will, it's kind of like somebody that hasn't exercised in a long time, physically exercised. You're going to hurt when you first start that. You're going to hurt. You just are. If you walk a little longer, you're going to hurt. If you exercise in whatever field you are doing it, you're going to hurt. All right? Well, I'm not saying you're going to hurt here. You are going to experience anxiety here because you're changing. You'll even have anxious dreams. I laugh that my clients, many times at one point in their experience, when they're about to do a big dramatic breakthrough of consciousness, they always have disaster dreams, you know. A tsunami is coming along and going to kill everybody, or something else is going to happen, you know, a tsunami, an earthquake, something. And then you find out at the dream that you're all right, you're okay. Well, that's a disaster dream. That's just telling you, oh my God, change is coming, and that you haven't made your peace with change. It's really all it is, okay? All of this, my darlings, is inside you, and that's what we're challenging. For you, sweeties, to think differently, to be different, to open yourselves to what you want. It's outside, right outside these comfort zones. Now, my methodology is very gentle. It's not going to challenge you like climbing Everest so that you come face to face with death. Absolutely not. We figure out where all this is coming from, why you're acting the way you do, and let's act a different way. We'll give you some examples of that, all right? Yesterday, we did an exercise I'll put on the table for you. It's an exercise that really does help you see the difference between the ego child's mind and the higher self mind. For example, if we take emotion, let's say you are emotionally fluid, because that's a really big part of this. You must be emotionally fluid, right? And I've given you some exercises for that. I'll mention them again in this session to make yourself more emotionally fluid. But let's say you already are. So take some words like sad, dread, grief, rage, anger, hurt, pain, things like that. Now, tell me how your higher self deals with sadness, for example. Let's just take that one. And how your ego child's mind tries to deal with sadness. In other words, the higher self says, what? I'm sad. It's an acknowledgement that you are sad. And you then ask yourself, why am I sad? And there is a legitimate reason to be sad, or it's part of your fantasy that people are not thinking well of you and don't like you and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And that can also be that too, at which time we want you to challenge that fantasy. All right? But if you have a legitimate reason, then you say, well, I have a legitimate reason. A friend of mine just died. While I'm not in total grief because I'm glad they're out of pain, I am still sad not to have them in my life. And there's a restructuring going on that I understand. Now, that's all the higher self stuff, right? Okay. Ego child's mind will do something else with it. They'll indulge in it. They'll just shut themselves away, won't talk to anybody. They'll be locked away. This is an excuse for them to emote and be dramatic. They can do that with a friend on the phone. They can do that with themselves inside. They can do it overtly or covertly. They can yell at somebody else because they haven't resolved this inside. They don't want to be angry, so they'll, let's say they distract themselves by a fight. All of this is the child's mind not being able to deal, not being able to cope, not knowing how to cope in the highest mind way. Now, you keep in mind, guys, that the ego child's mind knows nothing of the highest self. If you're going to indulge in the ego child's mind, that's what you get. A lot of times, clients of mine will say, well, I tried to talk myself out of it, but that's the ego child's mind talking to the ego child's mind, and you're not going to get anywhere. Only when you're talking to the higher mind, only when you allow that in, which knows all about the ego child's mind, even though it doesn't work the other way around. That's where the solutions are. That's where everything is okay. I hope that makes sense to you. I don't think we've ever talked about it in that kind of detail, and I wanted to put it on the table, all right? Really important to know. So, this article, Why Do We Self-Sabotage, by this marvelous Ellen Hendrickson, is where I'm going to start, all right? She says, whether you refer to it as self-defeating behavior or standing in your own way. Ah, if it were only that easy. You'll see. Self-sabotage can interfere with the best laid plans and intentions and goals. It's any action, I'll even say it's any thought that results in action, any feeling that results in action, anything unresolved that results in inaction, that gets in the way of your intention. It gets in the way of, certainly, of consciousness and deeper levels of consciousness. And you'll see that even when you're trying for that, ultimately, trying to open to that, you can get in your own way. Toffel, hey, no. Well, obviously, my husband and my dog parted ways because now the dog is up here with me, which he usually is anyway. But we are going to have to call him down from time to time when he barks. Unfortunately, we have a lot of workmen. Don't ask me why they're working on Sunday, but how wonderful. Working on the house next door. Oh, the yard is getting beautiful. And he's pretty excited about that. So you and I'll just have to deal with it, right? Okay. Even she goes on to say that there are countless ways we sabotage ourselves. She has a list here. I have another list that I'm going to give you, but procrastination is one of them. Self-medicating with drugs or alcohol, overeating from stress, or any bad, what do I want to say? And I don't mean bad as in bad. I just mean it is not optimal. Any behaviors that show you're not dealing with stress well, okay? So it's not just about overeating or overdrinking. It's about, do you cope with stress well? Most of us did not learn to do that, believe it or not. Most of us have to learn to do that as adults. And we are doing it, and I want to stop here and say we're doing it in ways sometimes that are good for us, recognizing when we're tired and we don't feel like doing something and giving ourselves a break. That's healthy, okay? And then sometimes not in healthy ways that we say is healthy for us. For example, overworking ourselves to death and saying we want a social life but staying home because you don't feel like going out at all ever to meet another living soul. You see? That's isolating and withdrawing to self-soothe because you've been so harsh to yourself. Guys, that's not good. We should stop it on the front end, which is stop overworking, right? We've got to get control of the schedule. Okay. Interpersonal conflict, she also mentions. We're going to talk about all these things in much more detail. Are also widely used. Now, she goes on to say something that I think is extremely important to put on the table, and that is this. Many of these self-sabotaging behaviors are not conscious. They're in the unconscious realm, in the habit realm. We've just learned to do this, and we're doing it. And we have no idea what we're doing, and that's what's so insidious about it, isn't it? Because if we knew, we'd challenge it. Possibly, and that's the whole point. They're subtle. They're under the radar. You are your own ego-child's mind doesn't want you to see what you're doing because it wants you to keep doing it because it's trying to keep you alive, safe, and intact, and making sense of your world. You are alive. You are intact. Your world doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't. Just let it be out there, okay? Let's make your inner world make sense psychologically. Hello, Barbara. Barbara is one of my dearest friends and also a fabulous psychologist. She is just brilliant. And she said, what could go wrong? And then she says, humor and deflection. That is so cute, my darling. Oh, that's just great. That's giving me my laugh of the day. Great, Barbara. I hope you're doing well. I just miss you. Call me sometime. Let's talk. Okay. So, Thank you for that. That's just great. So these things are subtle. You're going to really see they're subtle when I start giving you the class list that the class came up with. You're going to say, on some of these, you're going to say, well, I do that. I never knew that I was sabotaging myself when I did that. It's just what I do. Okay. Now we're getting somewhere, huh? Okay. The thing also that I'm wanting to put on the table before we dive into the information truly, but all these things are important, is that every time you use self-sabotage, there's an entrenchment that happens. You are convinced you need to sabotage yourself again. You're convinced it does what it's supposed to do, you see. And every time you use it, it becomes a more entrenched behavior. And it builds and creates sometimes really quite the well of self-defeat that's going to be very hard to get out of. You can get out of it, but you're going to have to even look at this more specifically. So you have every reason in the world to try to look at these behaviors and go, oi, okay, got to do something else here. I can't do this anymore. That's one of the self-defeating behaviors. Do understand the self-sabotage is self-defeating. I mean, that's what I want you to know. You may get what you want in the moment. You're going to see a lot of that. But your overall life, if you use it, will not benefit. And we want you to have a great life. Let's do it. Okay. So why do we sabotage ourselves? Well, there's 6 big reasons. Okay. Number 1 is that you are lacking self-worth. In an ironic twist, some of the most driven people that strive to work hard and aim high are because it's an overcompensation and they feel their need to make up for an overwhelming and self-imposed, by the way, sense of inadequacy. They're making up for a lack of self-worth. Of course, the opposite is true, too. You can feel undeserving of success or happiness. And here's the interesting thing about that. Undeserving, isn't that a wonderful word? Or deserving. Neither one of them exists in consciousness. There's no such thing. I want to knock that right out of the water. Oh, it's a device of the ego child's mind to make us better than or less than, But there's no such thing as deserving. You don't deserve God's love. You're God. You're the aspect of God known as you. You open to more and more of it. The more aware you are, the more you go on this journey of awareness to consciousness to enlightenment. You're just opening to deeper levels of the divine. Hello, Franklin. Oh, I'm so glad that you're with us today. Good. I'm glad to see all of you. It's wonderful. Makes my heart sing. Okay. Self-worth. Self-worth. I mean, you can implode in it. You can never do anything because you have no self-worth. Or you can work too hard. You see, it isn't. One of the things I'm wanting you to realize about this, it'll make you a lot smarter, is that it doesn't matter what we do on the surface. It's what's motivating us that's the problem. Or not the problem, by the way, because when we are motivated by our highest self, there's no problem. That's wonderful. One of the tenets of that self, the higher self, is we do things because it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do for ourselves and others. That's it. It's a win-win all the way. But the ego child's mind plays a game, I'm not as good as you, you're not as good as me. We play that game. And certainly self-worth is one of the big reasons, the lack of self-worth, not self-worth itself, why we self-sabotage. Now, I mentioned cognitive dissonance. I'm going to mention it again because people like to be consistent. It's built into our natures. We like to be consistent. Our actions tend to be in sync with our beliefs and values. Sometimes. When they're not, we do make an effort to line them up again because it's very uncomfortable. So we start to, for example, in this case, let's say we start to rack up some accomplishments and some kudos. Thank you, Franklin. That are, we've done something well. And yet we view ourselves still, in spite of what we've done, as flawed, worthless, incapable, or deficient. And so we then pull the plug because we don't like that cognitive dissonance. We don't like this duality in us. And so we pull the plug and go back and default to what we've always felt about ourselves. Well, that's got to change, kids. It just does. We can't default unconsciously, so a lot of this is unconscious, right? Back to what we've always done. Thinking of ourselves as worthless. That's just not true. There's not one person walking around on this earth that's worthless. Everybody is contributing to our awakening and our knowledge. Even the people that in our opinions are not living good lives. I pray for them, but I support their right to be and do and know and not know exactly what is going on. I mean, everybody has a right to live their life the way they choose and to die the way they choose, by the way. We all have that right to live and die the way we choose. I don't want anybody interfering like that with me, and I know you don't want anybody interfering that way with you. Okay? So my point here is, oh, good, Franklin, I'm glad. Franklin says, if 3 months is long enough for me, self-care is needed. God bless your soul. Yeah, exactly. Self-care is needed. I hope we'll give you some information about that self-care today. So we pull the plug on cognitive dissonance a lot of times when it's there, and we revert, default, if you will, back to the ego child's mind that's always felt worthless and etc. And that's how we do it. Okay. Now, how we can stop that is to wake up and to realize we're doing that, to realize the cognitive dissonance in us. So what if you wake up and you realize, oh, wait a minute, I have two different things going on here, and that you're working with someone who can actually move the one that is not in keeping with your highest self. See, all this is energy. We just move it around. We move the energy. We resolve it in your head with words. Okay? But then we move the energy out. So you're doing something else, thinking something else, feeling differently about yourself. Do I know this works? Yeah, you know why? I'm the poster child for it. I am. I'll tell you a quick story. Years ago, I came from a very matriarchal family. My grandmother on my mom's side controlled everything. Okay, wow, was she a powerhouse? And she told you exactly how she felt about you, and what you were doing right, what you were doing wrong, and all that kind of stuff. And so I was intimidated by this old lady. Therefore, I had generalized. I was intimidated by old ladies in general, right? They were all my grandmother to me in my young mind. And I remember, gosh, I don't know how many years ago, but my first husband and I went to some function at a very elegant club. And it was, I think, celebrating the 50th anniversary of one of my friend's mothers and fathers, I believe. I hope I don't have that wrong. And we were all seated at great big round tables, all right? And right across from me was an old lady. I didn't know this old lady. And I don't know what she knew about me, if anything at all. And for some reason, out of all these people sitting at the table, she raises her voice so that the other two tables around us could hear. And she said, did she ask me if I was a Christian, or did she just say, do you go to church? I can't remember. I think she said, do you go to church on Sunday? And I was honest with her, and I said, this was before I did a show on Sundays, but I used that Sunday mornings to be quiet, meditate, and time for me and my husband, who was on the road a lot. And I told her that, and that was not good enough. And she said, well, now this is after I had been doing some work on myself, okay? She said, well, I have not missed going to church for 62 years. I go every Sunday, and I make Sunday school, which is an hour before. What do you think of that? And she was very blaming of me. And right out of my mouth, without thinking about it, I said, I think I must work harder than you do, and I need my Sunday mornings to connect with me. It was interesting, my reaction to that, because ordinarily I would never have thought of being quick like that. It shut her down, by the way, because it was inappropriate, right? But I felt like I wanted to look around and see who'd said that behind me. Isn't that interesting? I still couldn't own that kind of power yet. But as soon as I realized it, I went, my gosh, that is me. And that was inappropriate. And I did. I'm sorry I didn't do it more kindly now that I'm looking at this and I'm in a different place. But that was big for me. That was big for me. That was, 30 years of being one way and changed like that because I'd done some work on myself. Behavior came out differently. Okay. Number 2. So the first one that she mentions is self-worth. There's a lack of self-worth. The second is a need to control. Oh my God, guys, this is big, the need to control with people. People do not trust themselves, and they don't trust other people, and they don't trust God not to take them in a direction they don't want to go. You've got the wrong idea of God. The ego child's mind that believes that really does have quite the wrong idea, because you can't go anywhere that you don't want to go. There are all sorts of these marvelous talents in you that are going to come out more and more and more the deeper you go into this work. You're going to be so in sync with the ascended God you are that you know that there's a level of control going on that you don't have to exert with your brain or your will, that you just need to listen and to go with that flow, and it's going to be all right. But your ego child's mind doesn't know that. The ego child's mind says you're going to hell in a handbasket if you don't keep control of everything. It's interesting because people that use this in the way of self-sabotage, our writer goes on to say it's better to control your failure than face the possibility of it blindsiding you and taking you by surprise. Self-sabotage may not be pretty, but it's better than spinning out of control. Nobody spins out of control, guys. See, this is the drama of the ego child's mind. Let me tell you, it can be dramatic. And if you're not playing it out in drama outside of yourself, you're playing it out inside. You're a little kid that's screaming inside, in many cases. It can be overt, it can be covert, this drama. Okay, and it's really important to have somebody around you that'll say, oh, that's dramatic. Oh, look at you. You're playing that drama card again. So that you're aware that you're doing that and you can just tell the truth. The truth is not nearly as dramatic. Okay? Sometimes people are dramatic because they like to be. They think they're so dull. They think they have nothing to offer. You see? So they make things very dramatic. There's always a crisis. But you're giving yourself away as who you are. That's what you believe about yourself. for anybody who's looking. I say that drama, and I mean this with all my heart, drama belongs on the canvas, on the screen, on the page. It doesn't belong in your life. It doesn't belong in your life. Use it creatively. Make something happen artistically, not in your life. Okay. So control is about you wanting to steer the ship. You may be going down in flames, but it feels more like a well-maintained burn. And, oh my God, you just can't be out of control. It's interesting. I had mentioned that everything you want is outside of your comfort zones. And control is one of the ways the ego child's mind controls you not to go there. Okay? Sometimes we just have to know better. And we have to wake up to all the tricks that our ego child's mind plays on us, which is what this show is about. Let's get it all on the table. Let's say, if you're thinking this, ego child's mind. Okay? Good. Number 3 that Ellen comes up with is perceived fraudulence. This is the imposter syndrome. I've done shows on the imposter syndrome before. You can go back and look those up. There are radio shows on that. So she says, as the bar continues to rise, as you're promoted to a new position, or people think better of you, or you obtain higher levels of education, whatever you're doing, you feel you only have further to fall when you inevitably is the word, come crashing down. If you call attention to your triumphs, it's more likely you'll be called out as a fake. Okay. Guys, we have to come into reality. That's what strikes me about something like that. We have to realize everybody makes mistakes. We do the best we can. We apologize when we make one. We make up for it in some way. All right? But what somebody with perceived fraudulence and the imposter syndrome, same thing, do is they'll do the bare minimum and hope it goes unnoticed to keep under the radar, or they may push hard and go big, but worry constantly they'll be revealed or exposed any moment. Either way it feels, you feel like a fraud. It leads you to procrastination and diversion. So if you're faced with a task and you feel like a phony, you're going to play video games. You're going to go do something else. You're going to distract yourself in some way. Really? Do you need to do all that instead of just doing the best you can with your job? Come on. Yeah, this is a real good example between the ego child's mind and the higher self mind. Higher self mind says, nothing drama here. I'm going to focus on that. If I don't know something, I'll go ask somebody who does know. I'll do the best I can. I'll give it all the time I've got. That's all I've got to give. If your parent, by the way, ever said to you, your best is not good enough, young man or young woman, that doesn't even make any sense. Do you realize it? Because the best in this moment is all you've got. If you had COVID 6 months ago, the best with COVID was all you got. It was less. Why isn't that all right? It is, guys. It's our ego child's mind that says, oh, it's not all right because of... Oh, don't do that, please. Don't run with scissors, emotional scissors. Okay. Number 4. They find a handy scapegoat. A lot of times it's themselves. Sometimes when we make life so miserable for ourselves, though, when we're so harsh to ourselves, we can't talk about that. It feels like we're adding more of her burden. And we need to talk about that. By the way, that's a healthy thing to do. But what we do instead is we find a scapegoat. We will blame the situation or another person. We'll say things like, well, of course he left me. I was never around. Or, I failed the class, sure, but I barely studied. And while these reasons, she goes on to say, may be true, they're more frivolous. They're on the shallow end of the pool here. And they're easier to come to terms with you, coming to terms with you, and swallow and believe and move on than the deeper reason we secretly believe, which of course is, she left me because I'm not worthy of love. And of course I failed the class because I'm stupid. Here, we got to stop doing that. Let's call it what it is. Let's call it what it. First of all, nobody's stupid. We all have our gifts in different ways. Okay, so I don't believe that. Nobody's lazy. We talked about what lazy is. Lazy is just when the energy's going in a different direction. I'm giving you tons of examples of that. If your energy is going in a different direction than the one you want it to go in, you're not lazy. You're just doing something else. Let's find out where the energy is going. What do you believe to make the energy go there? You see? Number 5, she goes on to say, is familiarity. Again, people like to be consistent. We tend to choose consistency over our own contentment, over our own happiness. If you're used to being or feeling overlooked, mistreated, and exploited in your early childhood home, it's strangely reassuring to put yourself in that position now. You've been there your whole life. And while you may not be happy, it's preferable to the unknown. The unknown is just what is outside the box for you, guys. You understand? I've often said it a different way than she puts it, probably not as articulately. I always say that what you're doing is you're going back and putting your boat in really rough waters. At least you know where the rocks are, you say to yourself. Helps you keep control. I know where the rocks are. It never occurs to you, though, if you're really entrenched in this, that there can be smoother water somewhere else. A client brought this up to me the other day. She said that she is having far less trouble than she's ever had with her life, with other people, with misunderstandings. Why? Because she's changing. You understand? It isn't them there people out there that change. It's you. And that reflects back. Okay. Number 6 in this article is sheer boredom. Is there such a thing? Okay. She goes on to say that once in a while we sabotage simply to push buttons. Picking a fight and inciting drama can give us a rush. By the way, it's a way to raise your energy. You see? But of course, these are not random acts. These are not random acts. Sabotaging ourselves creates the familiar feeling of instability. That's important. And chaos. That's important. We're so afraid of it. And yet, many of us seek it. Plus, we're stuck at the bottom. If we're stuck at the bottom, we might as well brandish our power while we're down there. So being enraged makes us feel more powerful. Guys, when you were a little kid, I explained this yesterday to people. When you're a little kid in your early childhood home, and let's say your mother or your father have an anger problem, you don't even relate to them as a little child. You relate more to animals. So it's difficult when you don't have an animal in the house to relate to because you don't have anybody to talk to. You're all alone. Okay? And what happens is if that you see your mother or your father in these episodes where they lose it as a force. It doesn't even have to come at you. It can come at their clients, or it can come at their a sibling of yours. But you know it can come at you. The force. So you go about in your early childhood home making yourself a force too. One of the common ways to do that is to resent the hell out of them and never say anything. Or to keep everything covert. All in you. Bury the real you. You see? Okay. You have done things, and you might want to listen to the rest of the show, knowing that I have done things to make myself a force. I make myself angry from time to time, or I carry rage inside me all the time. You've met people, you may be one of them, that is just angry all the time. All you need is something to set you off. It's because you've made yourself this force to live in that household. It's not serving you anymore. You're not in the household anymore. So we have to do something else now. Okay? But all of these things, if they help raise your energy level, like mania, going into mania, just wound up tighter than anything. The time to stop mania is right in the beginning, is to be aware of your triggers, because if you wind yourself up, you're just going to have to wait till it's over, because there's nothing you can do about it. You're gone. Good sense is not going to help. A talk, anything like that, not going to bring you out. How wonderful it is when I'm working with a client to be able to say, okay, can you see you're in mania? Yeah, I'm in mania. Okay, well, let's slow it down now. Let's try to slow it down a little bit. Let's find out why you're doing this and help you get around it and come out of it sooner. Some of that helps to a certain extent. Sometimes I just have to work and not tell people what I'm doing. Because if they know, they're going to resist it, right? And resistance is one of the big things that we're going to talk about in just a minute. Okay. We have to look at root causes of things. We have to go back and look at what your childhood was like and what people were to you before you were 7 or 8 years old. By that time, these ways of living are deeply rooted in place. Deeply rooted. A lot of people on the surface will think of self-sabotage as a fear of success. But deep down, despair over achievements isn't truly a fear of ambition or your own worth. It's a fear of trying one's best and not succeeding, of being personally let down and publicly humiliated, and the deep, deep feeling that we're just not good enough. Now let's face that, okay? We're just not good enough. That explains it. You see, the reason the ego child's mind likes to embrace that thought is it explains your life. As I've said before, there are only 2 issues. You don't care about me, and I never get what I want. Those are the 2 issues. Those are all the general headings that every issue in the world falls under. Well, what explains those 2 issues? I'm just not good enough. I'm just not good enough, therefore nobody cares about me. I'm just not good enough. Therefore, I'll never get what I want. Can you see how insidious that is? Okay, real important. I'm skipping over some of this because I want to make the most of our time. I want you all to look back. I've done some shows on this, and I can also tell you, if you can't find those shows, because I know it's confusing. We have so many shows that we've done on a variety of topics. But I think what plays into self-sabotage also is an insecure attachment style. We talked about this. We did a series on attachment styles. You might have an ambivalent or avoidant attachment style, and that's going to contribute, I think, to this. You learned it in childhood, by the way. So let me give you a tip that you can do when we're off the air, and that is go to Jeb, J-E-B, Kinnison, K-E-N-N-I-S-O-N, K-I-N-N-I-S-O-N, Jeb Kinnison, attachment styles, insecure attachment styles. Put that in. And then there's also the secure attachment style, which is what we are wanting you to go to more and more. But attachment styles will certainly play into this quite a lot. Okay. Wanted to put that on the table. Let's see what else I'm wanting to put on the table. I found another article that talks about relationships triggering self-sabotage, that you could be in a relationship that doesn't support you. And here's the interesting thing about that. There isn't anything that they're doing to you that wasn't done when you were a kid, and you are seeking the familiar. You are reassured by the familiar, even if it was a load of crap. So I need for you to look at it realistically. It isn't about what a bad person, male or female, that person is. It's about that you have chosen that because it's familiar and you're trying to work out something from your past. So for God's sake, let's work it out, right? Yeah, that's the important thing here. Okay, I'd like to go to some of these marvelous things right now that my team did for you and for themselves. Here we go. Before I do that, I want to tell you how to get over this, okay? What you're going to do with these. So you might want to write this down. First of all, is to identify what you're doing. Because if these things... Oh, hello, Franklin. I just learned that listening to you can really go without doing anything. Darling, you're evolving no matter what. If you've never heard of me, you're evolving. What my job is to do is to help it go faster, deeper, be more profound, and eventually get you where my work takes us, which is in consciousness work. I want you all to have better lives. Of course I do. But my work is a little different from a psychologist's who is helping you sometimes just adjust around things. Sometimes they take you deeper, like my darling Barbara will take you as deep as you want to go. She's fabulous. But sometimes you're just wanting some help to make your life better. You want to feel more comfortable. What we do here is try to certainly help your life be more comfortable. But we also, yes, thank you, Franklin. But we also want to have you keep going. Keep evolving, keep deepening, keep growing, keep into the ultimate place where incredible peace resides. And you know that everything is 100% okay. And that God's right in the middle of everything because you're right in the middle of everything. And that everything is an aspect of God. And that you are responsible for creating your life, and that this is a sacred moment right now, and that's where it happens. That's my job, is to open all that and more up for you. Okay. So, when we start talking about the things that people do, that I'm about to tell you, the first thing I want you to do is identify that as a behavior of yours. Now, open your mind to this. We had one of our clients, hang on just a minute, one of the people in the advanced class, she's so incredible, say this. She said, because she kept saying, well, I don't do that. And I kept saying, yes, you do that. And I explained how she was doing it. And she said, oh, I didn't see that. And she said, I look for literal meaning in everything. And that makes me blind to the bigger picture that I am using this absolutely. The other thing she does that I'm going to put on the table for you is that she looks for absolutes. She wants everything to be right or wrong, black or white, good for you or bad for you. She wants absolutes. She lives in absolutes. There are no absolutes, kids. There are absolutely no absolutes. So we need to bring you in from the edges, because sometimes she gets on these edges. Depression, mania. No, come to the middle. There are no absolutes. There's just this moment. What are you going to do with it? Going to be a good one? You're going to learn something? You're going to throw it in the garbage can? You're going to get raving mad? You're going to realize you have a problem? You're going to call somebody? You're going to talk? You're going to throw it all in the trash can and say it's all bull? What are you going to do? The literal moment is where the magic is for you. The sacredness. It will never come again, this moment. Or the next. Or the next. And how she's using the literal moment is she's looking for the literal words. Think of what I'm about to tell you more as expansive. That's why when I read these articles to you and I'll pick them apart and then I'll go off on a tangent, because I want to open your mind past the literal words. Okay. So, number one, here's how to get well. Identify those behaviors. Be honest. Think outside the box. See how you're using it. Write it down. Number two, what triggers that? You see, it lies dormant for a while until there's a trigger. And so you will often hear me ask you in our session, all right, look at the last 24 to 36 hours. What bothered you? What triggered this off? What happened? A lot of people say, I don't know. Some people are so totally unconscious they can't know. So that tells me as a therapist that I've got to go in and I've got to make them more aware. I've got to wake up their brain so that they see what's happening right in front of them. Because some people really don't. Unconsciousness and confusion, I want to put this on the table, are devices that you use so you don't have to think about it. It's an avoidance technique. Both of those things. Nobody's confused. You all know what to do. You bring up confusion and make yourself confused so you don't have to deal with it. You understand? So realize what they are and say, thank you very much, little sweet body, for the confusion, for me going down unconscious, but I'm going to keep a notebook from now on and I'm going to write down what has bothered me. And I'm going to see, if I don't deal with that, how it plays out later on. Because I'm going to ask you that. What is the trigger here? What is it that bothered you that you ran right by, that you didn't acknowledge was upsetting you? You add 2 or 3 of those and you're going to get some sort of nice explosion or overreaction to something, you see? Good. Number 3, try to increase, and this will increase, by the way, naturally, as you do deeper consciousness work, but your tolerance for the unknown. darling, the unknown is just something that hadn't been defined in words or feelings yet. We want you to be cooperative with God. If you're not hearing something and you're in full cooperation and alignment with the highest self, you'll be told when you're supposed to do something. You always are, and then you do it. You've got to take action. But we have such an intolerance for the unknown. Look at your television, and you can see a complete intolerance by society for the unknown. The president sneezes, pundits get on the air. Oh, here's what it could mean. Oh, this happens. This happens. Here's what it could mean. Here's what it could mean. Everybody's a psychic without calling themselves that. Oh, no, they're much more educated than that. They're much more intelligent to call themselves that. But everybody is afraid, and they're reaching out to figure out what it could be like. Well, you're doing the same thing on your level. You see? I got to figure out what's going to hurt me. That's, guys, that's just control that we talked about. Yeah. Thank you, Franklin. It's just control. Stop. As a society, you're getting that it's all right to do that. It's not. It's not going to make you happy. But it's training us to do that. Why don't you wait and see what it's going to be like? Okay? And something comes out on the news all the time about NASA and UFOs. Well, call me when they get here. Okay? I'm busy. And so are you. Call me when something changes, but not for the fact that it may change. You see what I'm talking about? Stay in here, the present moment. So what if you don't know? Everything's still going to be all right. You're the aspect of God you are. Every single thing that's happening in your life is the aspect of God. If you'll open to that, there'll be a deeper peace. Hang on, Franklin. The rest of this lecture and more, I'm going to tell you exactly. He said, what do I do? And I'm telling you right now, first of all, identify the behaviors. What's your trigger? Develop a tolerance from the unknown. The other thing, what's going to help the tolerance for the unknown and everything else we're talking about here is emotional fluidity. That means you need to define your emotions. You mean go back to the emotion sheet. Take action. Use it every time. See what you're feeling. Not when you're blowing up. I mean, that's very helpful because anger is made up of a lot of different components. But when you're just sitting there quiet, everything is, you see, every single moment of your life is an emotional moment. What's underneath just sitting there quietly? The desire to learn, being pissed off that this isn't supporting what your ego child's mind wants you to support right now. What's going on? And being able to define those things gives you a lot of access to the rest of your healing. Because if you can't define anything, and I do have clients that come to me and I say, how do you feel? And they'll go, I don't know. I don't know. I don't even can't remember what happened. I just remember being a little angry. Okay. Then we got some work to do. Number 5, it will help you to talk about this with someone. Another therapist, a minister, whoever you trust. And it depends on what you want out of this, okay? Yeah, Franklin says there's full-blown anger and say, well, you know, Franklin, I'm going to tell you, I'm sure much of it is justified, but you've got to resolve it now and go on. So you've got to get somebody to help you, sweetheart. When you're caught in anger, and anger is kind of a mania, you're going to need to have somebody help you with that. That's all. You know, I've been doing work on myself forever. I think I started in my late teens, and I've been working on myself ever since. I'm working on myself now as I talk to you, as I do research on what I'm going to talk about. Okay? So this isn't, oh, I'm so bad, therefore I need work on myself. How about you reaching your potential? Let's do work on yourself. How about this being a privilege now to do? So I wasn't just talking to you, Franklin. I'm talking to everybody here. But it's, yeah, time to move on. Yeah. Okay. So you've got to talk about it, resolve it. Cognitive therapy is a marvelous thing. That means that you use words to figure out what's going on, why what happened. You get ready to move on. But there's another side of that, which is what we do here, which is then I move the energy out from what we talked about and even find out some more and deeper things underneath the words. All energy is movable, guys. But if you are stuck, you've got some what psychology calls fixations. They don't tell you what's fixated, but I'm going to tell you what's fixated. It's energy around things. You've got energies are stuck around certain events and happenings in your life, around who you think you are, around who your relationships are. You know, if you can't move on past somebody in a relationship currently, look back at your past, because they are a representative of somebody back there. Or maybe several somebody. The fact is, we have to free the energy. And I think that's what consciousness work does. It frees the energy from those old fixations. What does the energy do? It comes back into present so that you can treat this moment as a sacred moment and create what you want out of it. Okay. The next thing is number 6 is I think it's very helpful for you in your work with someone to identify your goals. Learn everything you can about that. And ask for help and seek help and read. You know, when I wrote my first book, I stopped in the middle and took courses and read everything that I could read and found an incredible editor to help me. Yeah. Well, Franklin, that pain is very familiar to you. Franklin is saying that he's in a lot of pain. That you were in pain when you were a little kid. I guarantee you were. So it's not the pain of what happened 10 years ago. It's the pain of your life that we want to fix. You see? Because all that did was bring it up so you could take a look at it. And the whole reason you're listening to a show like this is because part of you wants to get rid of you. Part of it doesn't. That's the dissonance that we're talking about. Okay? All right. So that's what you're going to do with this. You also, when you identify these behaviors, when you find out the trigger of this, I want you to ask yourself if that's a lie, because most of the time it's a lie that you're telling yourself. Like, let's say, let me just find a behavior. I try to be perfect, and I do things perfectly, okay? I try to do that. I have that standard in my head to have everything be perfect. Do things perfectly. Okay. Well, if you're doing that, why are you doing that? It's because I feel like I am so flawed. Okay, that's really good find. Great. If you're really honest, that's probably why you were, working on the perfectionism. You're always wrong. You can't do anything right. Your mere existence is an accident. All right? You shouldn't be here. Okay. Now, are any of those things truths? It's propaganda from the ego child's mind. Because the highest self mind tells you everybody's here for a reason. Everybody has the ability to do work on themselves. Everybody has the ability to be in their highest self. What are you doing? You see? And that's where you go, I get it. Okay? I'm lying to myself. Then write the truth down. Try to live by that truth now. Okay. So here are some of these marvelous sabotage points that the class came up with. Okay? I think negatively. I'm a negative thinker. I try to think negatively about everything. It's a protection. All of this that I'm going to mention, by the way, are the protections of the authentic self, the protections of the little vulnerable you. You started every single one of these things as a child. I think negatively, I expect the worst, and I expect negative outcomes. If you get there first, you're controlling it, aren't you? You're controlling how badly you hurt, you see. You've hurt yourself worse than anybody else could. Number 3, I put myself last and don't prioritize taking care of myself. This is a bad habit. You must put you and your family first. You must take care of yourself. You must see how you're feeling as you go through your day. You must deal with it as close to the time that you feel it as possible. Sometimes we have to put these things off. Granted, we're working. But make a contract with yourself that you'll deal with it as soon as you leave the office. Okay. I ignore myself and my needs. Can you see all of these as self-sabotaging? I ignore myself and my needs. I have a really funny story about this. I think this was written by the same woman. She told me a great story. So one of the things I always have my classes do, because they are hard classes, I am not easy, okay, is I want you to reward yourself. When you have a big breakthrough, when you do something you don't want to do a little something nice for yourself. Go have some ice cream, or if you're not into ice cream, if you go buy yourself a little something, go walk in the garden, go see something you've never seen before that you love. Go do something nice, okay? It's a reward for you for what you have done that was so difficult. So I knew we were going to have a really difficult class the following week. So I said, so next week I'm wanting you all to be sure that you have whatever you want in the house, that you take care of yourself, that you do something to reward yourself for this hard class. Everybody went, oh, yeah, that's great. So the next week, which was 2 weeks, of course, later, I said, okay, what did you do to reward yourself? And everybody said, oh, what a wonderful time they had. They had a marvelous time. They enjoyed everything except one person who said, it was just horrible. And I said, what was horrible? She said, well, when you told me 2 weeks ago that we were going to do this, I decided that I was going to get a big pizza, a gluten-free pizza, and I was going to eat it all myself. And I was going to, and that fell on a night where my favorite television show was on, and I was going to watch it start to finish. And I was so excited about doing these things, and I looked forward to them for 2 weeks. And when that night came, I made the pizza. I didn't feel like eating the pizza, but I made it anyway, and I forced myself to eat the whole thing because I said I would. Are you getting something wrong here? And I watched that television show from start to finish. It took up all night long, and they were all reruns. And I was so disappointed, and I'd seen it all, and I didn't want to be doing any of it. And it was a force. Everybody else had just said, what do I want to do in the moment? I've got to do something. Let's go do it. You see the difference? So she thought she was taking care of herself. Really? No. Guys, you all are tricky. Wake up. The next one, I worry about measuring up to others' expectations of me and the expectations in my own mind. Nobody has any expectations of anybody. I'd like to be treated the way I treat people, which is with honor and respect. But other than that, you get to be who you want to be. I get to be who I want to be. I'm not measuring up to anything. You're not measuring up to anything except in here. Stop. It's going to make you crazy. Number 6, not being my own advocate in general. Just not being, somebody's got to stand up and say what's what. Right? Oftentimes, we just are silent. We let things go by. We watch television and we're not even there. And we listen to all these commercials that tell us you're going to have osteoporosis if you don't take calcium. Really? Is that true? No. Guys, you got to be aware every moment of the information coming in. And you have to be courageous enough to say the truth for you. If it's appropriate, sometimes it's just appropriate to say it inside. Okay. The next one. I notice my own flaws and give a lot of negative meaning to them. Now, negative meaning in this case, she means I self-attack a lot. And I downplay and ignore my strengths. Okay. Let's talk about that one a minute. I notice my own flaws and give negative meaning to them. In other words, and I'd rather use the word self-attack than negative meaning. I'll tell you why, but for this very reason. So let's say, let me try to think of an example. Let's say you are making a birthday cake for somebody, and you forget to put the eggs in. And so it turns out it's kind of a flat mess, but it's okay. You can put some ice cream on it and everything. But it ruins your night. It ruins your night because you're such an idiot. Did you say that you're an idiot about just forgetting that one thing because you had a lot on your mind? That you'd been working all day? That you had to take the dog to the vet? And that you had to pick up your child from nursery school and still had a birthday party? Did you give any kind of peace to yourself about everything and being human? No. You just say, I'm a load of crap because I forgot eggs, like I always do, is the implication. That's a self-attack. Don't you see? I think you're doing the best you can. I forgot the eggs. The cake is flat and a mess, but we'll put ice cream all over it and we're going to have a good time. What difference does it make? But in your head, you're doing something else with it. I need for you to know that under any of these things that I'm mentioning to you, if you feel really bad when you use them, the next thing I want you to do is find the self-attack. Because the self-attack is the real trigger, isn't it? The self-attack is the trigger. Okay. I think there's another really important note here in number 7, and that is that you notice your flaws and you don't notice your virtues. So if you were my client, I'd sit down and start asking you to look at your virtues. I'd look at those. I'd see what you do really well. I'd see how you're different from other people. Let's emphasize those things, right? I gave a course a while back on mistakes, and I found a wonderful statistic that said for every 10 decisions we make, 4 of them are usually mistakes. We don't have enough information, or our ego gets in the way, or something, right? Why can't we be all right with that? Guys, you remember what I said last week? That what you are seeking is in what you're most afraid to look at. Your divinity is in your humanness. Your divinity is in your humanness. So what if you're busy? See, these are all the ways that you're pushing your humanness out of the way. This is all the ways you're saying, I'm not good enough as a human, when you are. There's nothing that's ever been wrong with you. You just need to get to work, because you're self-sabotaging if you have these things. You've got to find out why. Got to fix the source problem. I'm not enough. The next one. I am resistant. Oh my God, resistance is huge. I've worked with this advanced class for a long time, and they are face to face with their resistance now. It's really interesting. They are resistant. They want to keep fighting their mom or their dad. They want to keep striving. They want to keep, gives them energy, gives them a reason to get up the next morning, this low level of rage. Oh, come on. Really? Do you need it? No. Excuse me, my dog is wanting to get up here, and I'm going to, go on, hop up quickly. Thank you. You can be resistant to a lot of things, okay? You can be resistant just being, okay, you're going to have to be quiet. You can be resistant just to change itself because your family was, because it's part of your power to be resistant. You've learned that a person that is quite unpowerful, like a little kid, can be resistant deep down inside, and it gives you, you become the force, you see. Oh, there are a lot of reasons we do what we do. I don't want to let go of control. That's a good one. And I keep hiding my resistance from myself so I don't have to see it. Okay? Why don't we just assume you're resistant and now find it? If everything is resistant, if you are resistant, find out why. Why do you need a villain, by the way? That's part of this. Why does there always have to be a villain? Why can't you let things rock along and be quiet and lovely and peaceful and loving? Why create drama? Drama is a part of this. Drama will self-sabotage you every time. You don't get what you want that way. You just make everybody afraid of you. And that's great, because when you were a kid, it was protection. But are you really protecting yourself now from the people you love? Boy, that's stupid, isn't it? We tell ourselves. It isn't a smart thing to do. So when it's over, you're self-attacking. You understand that? When you do any of these things and you're aware of it, a lot of times you go into self-attack. Don't do that. Just realize what you're doing and change it. Okay. Next one. I blame and criticize and judge myself and my actions. Well, that certainly feeds into I'm not enough, doesn't it? And when you do that, when you blame, criticize, and judge yourself and your actions, do you see that it's so uncomfortable and so miserable down there in that energy that you have to compensate by being king and queen of the world and striving too hard and working too hard and wearing a mask and doing all the other things that you can do? It's overcompensation. One leads to the other. Do try to make the links in this that are your own personal links, because we're not in session together. I'd be doing this with you. I'd be finding these things out myself if we were in session. But this is a radio show. You're going to have to find them for yourself unless you call me or you work with somebody like my precious Barbara. Being avoidant. That's certainly a good self-sabotaging tool, isn't it? Actually, I think every single thing we are going to talk about falls under avoidance. You're avoiding. Okay. You're avoiding all the energy and your potential. You're avoiding you. You're avoiding being authentic. Suppose I can't do it. Well, why don't you try it? Suppose I can't do it. Maybe I can't do it. It's what the ego says without trying it. Guys, you know, If we all adopted the attitude that James Earl Jones put on the table, his character in Field of Dreams, I think it was. Remember, he said something to the effect, and I paraphrase, I don't know what's in that cornfield, but I've got to find out, but I'm going to find out. Yeah. You see? Now, what happens to then our intolerance for the unknown? Come on. There's nothing but good things there when we drop our old limitations. There was a reason to have them back then. Those reasons don't exist right now, except in our own minds. Okay, how's that time? Ooh, I'm all the way to, I have a feeling we're going to do another show on this. While I'm stopped, though, I want to tell you all that I will not be here for the next couple of weeks. One is a birthday that's coming up for my precious husband, and the other is a visitor. So I will not be here for the next 2 weeks, but please tune in for the rest of this 3 weeks from now. I don't know what that date will be. Let me see if I can find that out for you. What will that date be? That will be the... Okay, hang on. I'm almost there. I think that's going to be the... Actually, I think that I've got my dates mixed up. Let me work these out, and I will... it just will be next week that I'm not working. So let me figure all this out. And I thought I had it figured out, but I don't. All right. Let's go back to our list here for a minute. Not knowing what you have inside you, not using it, not believing in yourself consequently, not validating yourself as what you're feeling and what you're thinking and what you're doing as having validity to you. Guys, your values, for example, that's where the word comes from. Your values are who you are. I could no more give up my love of beauty. It's a value of mine. I could no more give up my love of people and animals. I could no more give up my creativity. Those are all values of mine. It's who I am. It's where I try to come from in all times. Okay. Who are you? Go back to your values. Hold on to those. Validate yourself. Come from that. Believe in those things. Make sure they're present in every interaction you have. Okay, we talked about self-attacking, which is on this list. That's why everything is so much worse. It's tied to being dramatic. You self-attack. You don't just look away for a minute and hit the car in front of you while you're trying to change the radio and cause a dent in their bumper. It's the end of the world as you know it. You are a horrible person. That's what you tell yourself. That's the self-attack. Now, yours is much more specific than mine, but why do that? Why not realize everybody makes mistakes? I'm really sorry. I'll be glad to pay for it. That's it.
90 seconds.
Oh, 90 seconds. So we're going to have to stop right there. Okay. Kids, please check my website, which is marthanovak.com, and do see what our next schedule is, and I will be here for you as often as I can. I just want to go celebrate with my darling husband next week. I don't know what we're going to do yet, but it's going to be fun. And
60 seconds.
Oh, thank you very much. Oh, aren't you sweet, Michelle? Thank you for saying that. Guys, thank you so much for all the attention you give the show, the kindness, the tuning in, the getting the word around to your friends about the show. Our conscious community is indeed growing, and that just makes us feel so good over here, and certainly makes me feel good, because sometimes when you're just sitting here, if I don't hear from you, I go, oh, well, is anybody out there? You know, it's just marvelous that we have this interaction. So thank you so much. I love you very much. Guys, be good and gracious and kind to yourself, because that's God. Thank you, Peter. I'm so glad you were here today. You know, your kindness to yourself is God working through you, honey. You know, and it doesn't feel good when you're not kind to yourself, because it's the opposite from the ascended
10
mind,
seconds.
right? Okay. Dear God, we ask now for a healing here and in all its aspects. We thank you so much. And we say this prayer in your name and in the name of all these dear people listening in. And so it is. Amen. See you soon, kids. Check the website for the next show. I'm about to figure it out now, okay? All right. Bye-bye.